November 29th, 2025, 11 p.m. local time. Air raid sirens begin wailing across Ukraine. What happens next will become one of the largest aerial assaults in modern warfare history. 596 drones, 36 missiles, 10 hours of relentless attacks, and a chilling message sent while diplomats thousands of miles away discuss peace. This isn't just another strike in a nearly 4-year war. This is Russia demonstrating a new kind of military pressure, one that combines cutting-edge drone swarms with brutal winter warfare tactics. And the timing? It couldn't be more calculated. Tonight, we break down what happened during those 10 hours of darkness over Kyiv, the technology behind Russia's drone strategy, and why this attack changes everything about the peace negotiations happening right now in Washington. Let's start with the scale. 596 drones launched in a single night. To put that in perspective, that's more drones than most countries have in their entire military inventory. Ukrainian air defense forces tracked them all. Shahed 136, the newer Jiran 2 variants, and hundreds of Gerbera decoys designed to look identical on radar. Alongside the drone swarm came 36 missiles, 5 hypersonic Kinzhals traveling at Mach 10, 23 Kh-101 cruise missiles, 4 Iskander ballistic missiles, and 4 Kh-59 guided missiles. The Ukrainian Air Force shot down 558 of the 596 drones. That's a 93.6% intercept rate, an impressive number by any military standard. But here's what that really means. 38 drones still got through. 38 potential hits on critical infrastructure. And when you're targeting power stations, transformer substations, and energy distribution centers in freezing November temperatures, 38 hits is devastating. The missile intercept rate was lower, 19 of 36 shot down, just under 53%. Why? Hypersonic missiles like the Kinzhal are nearly impossible to intercept. They travel too fast, and by the time radar picks them up, there are only seconds to respond. By sunrise on November 29th, the damage was clear. 3 people dead, dozens injured, and more than 600,000 Ukrainians without power. Over 500,000 in Kyiv alone. Another 100,000 in the surrounding region. Almost 8,000 in Kharkiv. Emergency crews scrambled through darkened streets. Residential buildings burned. Families huddled in shelters unsure if the next explosion would hit their neighborhood. And through it all, the air raid alert screamed for 10 straight hours. So how does Russia launch 596 drones in one night? The answer lies in a factory 1,000 kilometers east of Moscow, the Alabuga Special Economic Zone in Tatarstan. According to Ukrainian intelligence estimates, this facility now produces more than 5,000 long-range drones every month. That's roughly 2,700 Shahed-type strike drones and 2,500 Gerbera decoys. 5 years ago, Russia didn't manufacture a single Iranian-designed drone. Today, they're producing them at industrial scale. The Shahed 136, which Russia calls the Jiran 2, is essentially a flying bomb. It weighs about 200 kilograms, carries a 50 to 90 kilogram warhead, and uses a simple 4-cylinder piston engine that sounds like a lawnmower. Pilots have described the noise as a haunting buzz echoing through the night sky. These drones are launched with rocket-assisted takeoff, then fly autonomously to pre-programmed GPS coordinates up to 2,500 kilometers away. They're painted black to reduce visibility at night and fly at speeds around 180 kilometers per hour, slow enough that some have been shot down by small arms fire, but fast enough to cover vast distances. But here's where Russia's strategy gets clever. For every expensive Shahed strike drone, Russia now deploys cheaper Gerbera decoys. These decoys cost around $10,000 compared to $50,000 for a real Shahed. They're made from plywood frames covered in polystyrene foam, basically glorified model airplanes, but on radar they produce similar signatures. Ukrainian air defense crews face an impossible choice. Treat every drone as a potential threat and exhaust your ammunition, or try to distinguish decoys from real threats and risk letting a strike drone through. Jacob Parakilas from RAND Europe puts it simply: the Gerbera is effective because it flies similar routes and produces similar electronic signatures. Ukraine can't afford to ignore any of them, and Russia keeps upgrading. Early Shahed drones used basic GPS navigation that Ukrainian electronic warfare could jam. Now they're equipped with 8-array or 16-array antenna systems that resist jamming. Some even carry 3G and LTE modems for backup navigation. This is asymmetric warfare at its most calculated. Russia throws overwhelming numbers at Ukrainian defenses, forcing them to burn through expensive missiles, shooting down cheap foam decoys. While we talk about intercept rates and production numbers, there are real people living through this. Imagine it's 11 p.m. on a Friday night. You're settling in for the weekend when the air raid alert sounds. Again, you've heard it hundreds of times over nearly 4 years of war, but tonight feels different. The alert doesn't stop. 1 hour becomes 2, then 5, then 8. You can hear explosions in the distance and some close enough to rattle windows. You check your phone. Power's still on. For now, by morning, your neighborhood is dark dark, no electricity, no heat, and temperatures outside are hovering around 4 degrees Celsius. More than 600,000 Ukrainians experienced exactly this on November 29th. President Zelensky described the attack as targeting energy infrastructure and civilian facilities, with extensive damage and fires in residential buildings. 3 people died, 2 in Kyiv, 1 in the surrounding region. Dozens more were injured. Emergency services worked through the night responding to fires and structural damage. Private energy company DTK eventually restored power to about 360,000 families, but the repairs took hours. This is the 4th consecutive winter that Russia has systematically targeted Ukraine's energy grid, not military bases, not weapons depots, power stations, transformer substations, the infrastructure that keeps civilians warm and safe. It's a strategy designed to break morale, to make ordinary Ukrainians suffer until their government accepts whatever terms Moscow offers. And the timing of this particular attack? That's where things get even more cynical. Let's rewind to November 23rd, 6 days before the attack. Ukrainian and American diplomats are sitting in Geneva, Switzerland. The Ukrainian delegation is led by Presidential Chief of Staff Andriy Yermak. The American side includes Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll. They're discussing a revised peace plan. Originally 28 points, now streamlined to 19. President Trump announces there are only a few remaining points of disagreement. Zelensky says the plan can become workable. Both sides describe the talks as constructive. Progress is being made. There's cautious optimism. And then, 6 days later, Russia launches 596 drones at Ukrainian cities. This isn't coincidence. This is strategy. Military analysts call it negotiating through force, escalate militarily while engaging diplomatically to maximize leverage. You sit down at the negotiating table, but you make sure the other side knows you're still capable of inflicting massive damage. Rob Lee from the Foreign Policy Research Institute described it perfectly. The timing is deliberate. Russia escalates militarily while negotiating diplomatically to maximize leverage. Classic strategy, but devastating for Ukrainian civilians without power in freezing temps. On November 28th, just hours before the drone attack, Ukraine struck Russian oil tankers in the Black Sea using naval drones. 2 tankers hit. Kazakhstan protested because one strike damaged pipeline infrastructure at a mooring point. Then Russia responds with this overwhelming assault. The message is clear. We can hurt you more than you can hurt us. We can leave your cities in darkness. We can make your civilians suffer through winter. So when we sit down to negotiate, remember who holds the power. European officials are watching nervously. French President Macron warned that any peace plan mustn't be a capitulation that allows Russia to regroup and attack again later. British Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper emphasized that Russia now needs to come to the table. But Russia is already at the table. They're just holding a very big stick. Ukrainian negotiators are in the United States right now continuing diplomatic discussions. They face an impossible choice. Option 1, accept a peace deal that may require territorial concessions and neutrality guarantees, terms that reward Russian aggression and potentially set up future conflicts. Option 2, reject the deal and risk losing American support under a Trump administration that's made clear it wants this war ended quickly. Meanwhile, Russia continues producing 5,000 drones per month. Winter is just beginning, and Ukraine's energy infrastructure remains vulnerable. Keir Giles from Chatham House called the original 28-point peace plan catastrophic for Ukraine, saying the terms were unenforceable, nonsensical, and vague. Even the revised 19-point plan raises serious questions about long-term security guarantees. European nations are scrambling to figure out what this means for their own security. Poland scrambled jets during the November 29th attack as a precautionary measure. Moldova reported that a Russian drone violated its airspace during the assault, the 3rd such violation in 9 days. If Ukraine is forced into a disadvantageous peace deal, every nation on Russia's border will be watching to see what kind of precedent it sets. And there's a broader technological concern here. Russia has demonstrated that industrial-scale drone warfare is not only possible but effective. They've shown that cheap decoys can overwhelm sophisticated air defenses. They've proven that targeting civilian infrastructure creates massive diplomatic pressure. Other nations are taking notes. The Iranian-Russian military cooperation that produced these drones represents a strategic partnership that extends far beyond Ukraine. Iran is using this war as a testing ground for weapon systems that may later appear in Middle Eastern conflicts. Russia is learning lessons about modern warfare that will shape their military doctrine for decades. This attack wasn't just about Kyiv on November 29th. It was a demonstration of capabilities, a warning to Europe, and a negotiating tactic all wrapped into one brutal 10-hour assault. 596 drones, 36 missiles, 10 hours of darkness, 3 lives lost, 600,000 people without power. Those are the numbers from one night in a war approaching its 4th year. But the real story isn't just about this attack, it's about what it represents. A new kind kind of warfare where cheap drones and winter cold become weapons, as powerful as tanks and artillery, where diplomatic talks happen in Swiss conference rooms while missiles fall on residential neighborhoods, where industrial production capacity matters as much as battlefield tactics. Ukraine shot down 93% of the drones. That's a remarkable defensive achievement, but it's not enough when Russia can produce thousands more next month, and the month after that, and the month after that. The peace talks continue, the attacks continue, and Ukrainian families sit in darkened apartments wondering what comes next. Winter has just begun.